Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Devious Maids Season 4. So, this is the last season of the Lifetime show that Mark Cherry and Eva Longoria came up with, and it is by far one of the worst seasons ever. It is just as bad as Season 2. Season 1 and 3 are good, but the way they portray their characters and people of color is just terrible. This is supposed to be a female-led show with that of, Hispanic maids, and it's just one stereotype and one downgrade from another. And it's quite a shame because, this show could have really elevated people's expectations. And, when it comes to that of women and people of Latino culture, especially that of Mexican, because they're supposed to be Mexican maids. Well, one's supposed to be Puerto Rican, but all the maids are not Mexican. The one that was, they got rid of her in season 3. And I don't get that. Why try to make this Latino version of Desperate Housewives if your Latino characters are always written so terribly? They have redeeming factors, sure, but it's just one thing after another that makes them terrible people. And it's mostly men that write this show, and they're all white. There was only one Latino person writing for this season who wrote for last season, because the other two left the show. Because there's only been about four or five Latino writers on this show altogether, and there's only one or two per season. You're not going to get a real Latino experience if you just have mostly just white writers and stuff. You're going to get an observation, and stereotypical ones at that. And Mark Cherry is no stranger to being writing stereotypical characters. He has a problem writing people of color. The man seriously does. Eva Longoria deserves some of the blame as well, because she is a co-creator and an executive producer, and she let a lot of stuff slip on this show. And people called her out on that, to where she defended this show, but she also dismissed it at the same time, saying that yeah, they could do things a lot differently and this and that. I don't get it. And when it comes to this show, nobody has ever defended this show except for her and the actress who plays Rosie. Now, the only reason why the actress who plays Rosie defended it is because during the first season, she was still on the show. So, of course, she's going to defend it, because if the show ends, then she's out of a job. But nobody else has defended or criticized this show that worked on the show. And I really want to hear their thoughts on the show, because, they never talk about this show. They don't even post older pictures of them being on this show. And I do wonder why. Speaking of Eva Longoria, she finally appears in this show. I've been wanting her to appear in this show for ages. She appears finally in the 4th season in one small, tiny role in the first episode, where she's technically playing a fictionalized version of herself, acting as the maid from season 1 who gets killed. So we get to see this reenacted. And why? Because Marisol, of all people, has decided to make a movie. Yes, you heard that right, Marisol. The person who is a college professor, English teacher, who pretended to be a maid in season 1 so that she could get justice for her son for a murder he did not commit. I keep sniffing. And what is it? Season 2, where she just dated some rich guy and wrote a book, and the book is now being made into a movie. So they had to find something for her to do this season. And what's interesting about that is that she ends up dating a guy played by none other than James Denton, the guy who played Mike in Desperate Housewives. So he's back working for Mark Cherry. And, their relationship is very interesting. Other things that make this season terrible is the whole Carmen and Daniela. Daniela is her 20-something-year-old daughter who she gave up just so she can be a singer. But that never happened in Carmen's life. It's a weird story arc that's pretty predictable. It's kind of like when Carlos's niece came to visit, And she clashed with that of Gabby in Desperate Housewives. Basically, she's an out of control girl, stereotypical. Same writing, man. I swear to God. Zoila, my God, like the stuff that happened to her this season, it's just like, who do you think you are, man? And last but not least, there's a cult that got introduced this season. Yes, you heard me right, a cult. What were the writers thinking to introduce a cult in this season? It went no, it started going places, but it didn't end very well. And of course, they got away with it and stuff. And it's just kind of like it's almost like the writers just gave up. It really truly is. They got so desperate they gave up, but they tried to hit us with twist after twist the last episode to try to keep people going and trying to get a season 5, but they knew the writing was on the wall. The actress who played Marisol, Anna Ortiz, she thought that season 3 was the last season, but it turned out it wasn't. They got 10 episodes for season 4 as opposed to 13 as in all the other seasons. The writing was on the wall, and it does make you wonder if they would have got a season 5. Like, what happened to Marcel? Is Genevieve gonna remain a lesbian? Yes, she turns into one in the very last episode, in the very last scene. Oh man, like what's going on with Zoila and everything? Valentina is still gone from the show. Does Carmen find out what her daughter's been doing and what's gonna go on with her and the crap that's going on with her this season? And I guess Spence and Rosie gonna be happily ever after because they really wanted to make that romance out of every other one like last, you know? So yeah, it was a very odd season, and they tried to cram so much craziness in 10 episodes, and it's just kind of like, why couldn't they end on a high note? This is really an embarrassment for like an all-female led show and a show with Latino leads. Like this was really an embarrassment on Lifetime, Mark Cherry, and Eva Longoyer's fault. It's their fault. I guess it's their fault. There's nobody else to blame but them and the writers. And Mark Cherry needs to learn his lesson, man. Like he needs to realize he needs to learn how to write better people of color because it's just not working out. It really isn't. Like when his projects and stuff and his female-led projects, that's all he does. And it's just kind of like this dude made Desperate Housewives. How do you go from that to this and Why Women Kill? It's like sometimes he'll have a good season, but then he ends up having bad seasons. And he started to have bad seasons with the 5th season of Desperate Housewives. After that 5th season, the show never recovered. That time jump thing, they never recovered from that. Anyways, so Rosie is the breakout star of this season because she's the one who solves this whole murder mystery type thing. Basically, she is upset because Spence has lost his memory and Perry has come back in the picture. And you know the whole deal with her and Perry and stuff like that. Well, at a dinner party, Perry ended up murdered. Who killed Perry? Why was she murdered? Well, the real reason is because the actress was not on the show no more, and they had to like really write her off this time. And since she didn't return after her show got canceled, they just killed her character off. They still could have got so much out of the whole Perry character, man. Like they really, really, really could have, because she was even though she was a racist and everything and a cheater, she was an interesting character. And yes, like always, they try to redeem her. Like they do all their terrible characters and stuff like that, but they always punish the people of color. And so, who killed Perry? Well, there's some interesting things that's going on. It has to do with this cult. So basically, there's a man named Ben. So Ben is supposedly the sponsor or manager of Spence. But Rosie does not recognize him. He's a brand new character, a Puerto Rican actor, and of course he's made to look like a bad guy because that's what just Mark Cherry does with his people of color. Anyway, Spence has amnesia, but then at some point during the party he starts to remember who he is, and then him and Perry get into a huge fight. Then she ends up dead. But who did it? They think Spence did it because Spence blacked out and wandered off and got drunk. So he gets arrested for the crime. Rosie's all like, there's no way he could have done it. But then all of a sudden he confesses to the murder. And that's like weird. Like, why? Why did he do that? Did somebody blackmailing him? I wish to God they would have written that he was being blackmailed. But no, it's never truly fully 100% explained as to how and why he blackmailed, how he's being blackmailed, or no, why he confessed to it. Because we see Ben in the interrogation room as he's confessing. And it's like, why? Why is Ben there? Like, so you think some type of mind control is going on. And even the show hints to that they think that Spence was drugged with a drug, and if you plant a hypnotic suggestion in somebody's head, they will say whatever you want them to say. So this is what's making people, the audience now, feel that Ben might be some type of hypnotist that hypnotized what's his face, because Spence was seen drinking like coffee or something like that from Ben. So Rosie, with the help of Marcel, they all like, okay, let's try. Oh, I think she gets help from somebody, but they're like, all right, if he ends up trying to give Spence another drink, then they can get the drink tested and this and that. So as Spence is in the hospital, shackled up and everything, that's what they do. And so they try to set that up. You know, they have Ben give Spence some coffee and they get it tested and it's completely fine because, you know, he was on to them and stuff. And so it turns out Ben is part of the Circle, which is the cult, this stupid thing that they came up with. And there are many people in their city who are part of it, especially people in the police force. That is how he was able to sit in the room and stuff. Now, as to how exactly they was able to get him to confess to it, even though he didn't do it, I honestly don't know. It was not explained very well at all. And I watched it and I had to watch it over again, and I honestly just don't know. Anyways, so you have Rosie, who is basically doing her detective skills, trying her best to get Spence out of jail. She badly wants to get her husband out. Ironically, you know what's really odd about this show? This is kind of just a repeat of season 1, where you had Marcel's son in jail for a murder he did not commit. And then you have one of the ladies trying to figure out who did this and who did what to try to get that person out. Ironically, you would think a group of friends would try their best to help get this person out of jail, but they all don't do that. They all have their own separate lives and doing their own separate things. And it's kind of like, are they even friends? Like, I don't get that, you know? And so she's constantly asking questions, and the cult doesn't like it, so they try to eliminate her. While Ben tries to like run her off the road. It gets her put in the hospital. And so, what is Spence's son name? I forget. Whatever the son name is, he got hurt, and he needs a blood transfusion. And so part of the problem with Rosie this season is since Perry is gone, they finally gave a Perry replacement in the form of her sister. And when it comes to that of her sister, whose name I can't even think of right now. It don't matter. She's barely in the show. Like, I think it might be, I can't think of it right now. Anyway, she's a pain in the butt. She's just as mean and nasty as Perry. And so this is causing complications for that of Rosie. And so when Rosie's all like, you know, we need to get Spence out of jail so he can do the blood transfusion for the son. And she's all like, no, I don't want him nowhere near that boy because she thinks that he killed her sister. And so like, it turns out that it's not even that reason. It later turns out that Spence is not even the father of that child. And so Rosie is the only person who knows that, and she decides to keep that from Spence all throughout the season. And he never knows that's not his real son. And so the cult, later on, Rosie finds out that the sister, Perry's sister, is working for that of the cult. And I'm just kind of like, what? And like I said before, a lot of people work for this cult. And so, like, the thing with the sister is that she wants the cult's help to make her a rising star, just like Perry. But it doesn't happen, and they're using her for her money and this and that. So she later gets out of the cult. And so, because Ben screwed up, the cult leader killed him and stuffed his body in her house. And so, basically, Spence is funny too. So Spence, this whole season, he's just the comedic relief. He's in prison or jail or whatever, and he's scared that this guy named Killface is going to, like, harm his butt. And all this other kind of crap. And so, like, 'cause he has the word Killface written on his head. But it turns out the people in the jail are actually really nice. And all they do is put on plays and help people and stuff like that. And so that's always funny when they make jail people like that, but then they don't always be like that. They don't be like that in real life now. And Killface tries to help, Spence in the way he can. He's like, oh, you need to get out of here to see your son and, do the transfer and stuff like that. Let me shank you. He's all like, no, that's all right. He's like, oh, man, it ain't gonna hurt just a little bit. He turns him around and in the back. And so Spence gets out, and then that's when they do the DNA test, and they realize that Spence is not the father. Anyways, at some point in time, Killface and Spence break out of jail. Yeah, they're really going there. Killface has been digging the tunnel. This is just a bizarre season, man. So Rosie's doing her best to try to, like, prove his innocence, and the police don't really want to hear. And so at some point in time, when they start to think, okay, maybe he is innocent, now they can't find him. So now the police are looking for both of them, and they end up in this abandoned house, a house next to where Zola is staying. Anyway, she gives them food and stuff like that, but Killface finally turns bad. He's paranoid, he has a gun, and he's just not wanting to go back to jail. So he tries, I think, to shoot Zola or something like that, and then he ends up shooting Spence by mistake. And so Spence is taken to, like, the hospital, but he survives and everything. Him and Rosie, after she does finally prove his innocence and stuff, they're together and they're happy, but she keeps from him the whole reveal about his son. And I'm just kind of like, how can you do that? Why let this man know, thinking he's the father when he's really not? I mean, what if they do need a blood transfer or like an organ transfer? Like, that's not going to work out now, I think that was really crappy of her to keep that from them. Now, as to who killed Perry, that's a completely other story, reveal that I'll get into a little bit later. Now, when it comes to Perry, she was part of the cult as well. And with this cult, you have to basically spill your guts to them, tell them all the most revealing stuff. And she revealed something. She revealed that she was assaulted many years ago by this person in Hollywood. And I guess the cult knows that person. And they always have to, like, cover up what they do and this and that. So they tell this person and this person's relative, and that relative is, like, is involved in the killing of Perry. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Carmen, they ruined her character this season. They ruined it last season, and they ruined it even more, to the point that where it's kind of like, how can they ever get past all this crap, right? Like that she did this season. So basically her music career is over. and she's keeping to herself, not dating nobody, but she's still working for the pals. And it turns out that her long lost daughter that I told you about 20 years ago, she had her, goes to visit her. Basically, what it is that the daughter got tired of who she thinks her mom is, which is really the aunt, and went to go live with that of Carmen. And so Daniela is a wild child, very wild, very promiscuous, sleeps around with tons of people, but she wants to be like her auntie Carmen and be a singer and all this other stuff. Carmen does not want her there, period. And so she calls the her sister to come get her and stuff like that. There's a huge fight because she doesn't want to go back home, but then she ends up being like a maid working for the pals. And so while there, Daniela ends up dating that of Jesse from last season of all people. He's back in town after leaving that of Marcel. It turns out that he never left the city. He just got a different apartment somewhere and hid out because he didn't want to be around Marcel. That's the fans talking right there. And so it turns out that, it's weird. Like, okay, Carmen is Puerto Rican in real life in the show. Her sister is also Puerto Rican in real life, right? Daniela is not. They couldn't even find another Puerto Rican actress to play her. They had to find somebody that's completely from a different country. I'm just kind of like, I get it. It's hard for Latinos to find a job in Hollywood. So they basically take on whatever role they can, kind of like Asian people. Like you'll have a Japanese person play a Chinese person. But my God, get these races right. Either write her to be mixed or something. And so basically, the whole thing about her and Jesse is just they're sleeping around for now, but she does like him. And so at some point in time, Daniela overhears that both her moms, having an argument and revealing the truth about her lineage, that she's really Carmen's daughter. This causes her to be pissed and turn even more wild. She doesn't like her real aunt because she's always trying to tell her what to do. And so she still wants to live with like Carmen, I think, but she's also pissed at her at the same time. But Carmen flat out tells her, and this is the part that's really hard to hear. Carmen literally tells her that, I was young when I had you. I was thinking about my career. I could not have a kid. And tells her basically, you are not my daughter. I might have given birth to you, but my sister is your real mother and you need to go back to her because I don't want you. Why would they write that for? And I think it was just to get her daughter to go back, but it's just like Carmen doesn't want nothing to do with her daughter, like whatsoever. But Carmen does come around a little bit when she hears her daughter sing, and she wants her daughter to be like a singer. Her aunt does not want her to be that and everything, and that's kind of what caused Daniela to leave and everything. But Carmen tells her sister that, she has a real gift, probably even better than me, and she can really make something herself, but the aunt ain't having it. So anyways, at some point in time, she does eventually go back home with her mom, only to cheat on Jesse, but Jesse cheated on her with, you guessed it, Marcel. Anyway, they come back and she's all like, oh, that's okay, because I cheat on you all the time. It's like, what kind of relationship do they have? And it's just like, they're writing her to be a wild child, what? Similar to Carlos's niece. And I hate when Mark Cherry does that crap. So basically, when she was gone, she had this audition for a commercial. Carmen's all like, since her daughter is trying to be like her, and why not she be like her? So she pretends to be her at the audition. She's 39 years old, and she's trying to pretend like she's 20. And so she actually outdances the other girls to the point where she gets the audition. But then something happens, and then she loses it. And I'm just kind of like, I'm surprised she wants to go into commercials now. I thought singing was supposed to be her big thing. Like, I'm surprised she's not trying to put stuff online so people can hear her and make another record company try to buy out her contract from the people from last season. But anyways, and so like At some point in time, I don't know, she told, like, okay, Daniela doesn't even know who her dad is. I forget what Carmen tells her. Either the dad's dead or he's a deadbeat or something like that, but it's actually her one true love, apparently, that she just never married and stuff. And we never know what he looks like because we never get to see him. So at some point in time, Carmen is starting to feel old. And she used to get free coffee at this place they hang out at because the waiter's in love with her and stuff and has a crush on her. But he can't serve her no more. And so, feeling old and everything, he's telling about how you're the beautiful woman in the world and blah, blah, stuff like that. She boinks him. She does not like him because he's nerdy and stuff, but she keeps doing him because she likes the way he like performs in bed. So then she's starting to come around to him a little bit until she looks at his laptop when he's in the bathroom and he has hundreds of pictures of her walking around the street, sleeping in the bed and in the car and all kind of crap. You know what I'm saying? And it's like he's stalking her. And there's even a severed head of her, like her and her head missing, her holding her head or some crap like that. So she wants to know what the heck is this about. And he tells her, oh, I'm just photoshopping your next album cover. I think she's dumb enough, from what I remember, to believe that. And it's just like, she should know that she doesn't have an album. She's not allowed to put anything out from last season. So he is just a legit stalker. Anyways, when she finally does break up with him, somehow he gets in touch with Daniela, and he finds her dad. And so, like, Daniela, she tells her mom, like, I found out who my dad is and blah, blah, but he's dead. Turns out he's not really dead. And she lied to her mom. Now she's vengeful towards her mom and wants her mom's life and wants to be just like Carmen Luna and all this other crap. And I'm just like, you had to write her like that. Like, come on now. But there is something interesting that happens. It revolves around the whole who killed Perry thing. So she was supposed to get like some type of audition for like a movie or something like that, and she had to meet somebody in Hollywood. I keep saying meet someone in Hollywood because there are two people involved in Hollywood this season. One's a producer, one's a director, and if I say who, then you're gonna know who it is. So he brings her over to his place and does the most sleaziest thing. Put something in her drink, hoping to assault her, the same person who assaulted Perry. So Carmen finds this out and she rushes over to the guy's place to try to save her daughter. But then, in a surprising twist, the daughter got the wool over his eyes. She switched drinks with him because Carmen tried to warn her, but she would not listen. But then she thought to herself, maybe I should listen to my mom. So she switched the drinks. He got knocked out, and then they tied him up to where he confessed everything about Perry's murder. But he's not the one who did it and stuff. He is the one who assaulted her and everything. But, and she tried to come after him and everything, like blackmail. And that's when the cult had to, like, tell somebody else to intervene. At least I think it was the cult and everything. But it's just kind of crappy how Carmen treated her daughter this season. But it was nice that she redeemed herself to try to save her daughter. But, to tell her you are not my child was just like harsh to hear. Marcel takes the back seat this season. She does not even try to figure out who is the murderer, which she should have, I think, because it's slightly directed to, connected to her, but it's also connected to Rosie. It would have been nice to be able to work together. Basically, she's making a movie out of her book, and she's dating the producer, a guy named Peter. And so basically, when she's attending the party with him and the director, she learns that they're misogynists and stuff like that, and he condones it and all that other crap. And her being a feminist, she's not for that. Well, they decided to do some interesting things this season. They decided to let characters who normally don't interact with each other interact. So she's having to interact with Genevieve this season, and Genevieve is not happy. Genevieve is pissed because Marcel's new boyfriend is her ex, and she wants him back. That's one of her ex-husbands, number 5, and he dumped Genevieve because she cheated on him. And so, but she does everything she can to try to ruin their relationship, even having like the hairdresser mess up, like, Marcel's. No, Marcel, I think, messes up Genevieve's hair because she wanted revenge. But basically, when Marcel tries to get into like a restaurant, she can't because Genevieve has blocked her because she has contacts. So it's interesting to see them go back and forth. It just, they don't really have chemistry together as characters. But then it is revealed that Genevieve was assaulted years ago and she has no idea how she got in that guy's bed. Basically, somebody put something in her drink. And her husband didn't even want to hear about it because he just dumped her flat out. Because he caught them like in bed or something like that, or somebody told him. And so she's pissed at him and she tells him basically, he's all like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, blah blah." She makes him like apologize, but it's like this: he assumed she cheated. He didn't know how she got there or what, and he didn't want to hear about it. A lot of people are like that, so he didn't have to apologize and stuff. And so when she tells him like the truth of what happened, him and Marcel reconcile and they get back together. Even though Marcel cheated on him with that of Jesse. And so, like, Jesse is basically hanging out with Rosie this season, trying to help her solve the case because he works for Spence's sister-in-law and stuff like that. And so, like, so they had to give him something to do. But basically, Marcel was upset because he lied about leaving town and never did. Just got like a new apartment and just like didn't like ghosted her and stuff. And he apologized for that, but he shouldn't have because Marcel literally pulled a gun on him and accused him of being a killer. Anyways, so at some point in time, a year passed and Marcel and Peter are about to get married. Until somebody kidnapped Marcel and nobody knows who. I think that's like fan fiction right there, but that's what happened. Also, at some point in time, Carmen was living with Marcel. I'm not sure if it was season 3 or season 4, but Evelyn Powell is because her and Adrian have finally broken up. She is just done with him and everything. And yes, he survived the blast and everything. And she wants her divorce, and he's decided, you know what, I'm gonna play a game because Marcel and Evelyn patched things up at the end of season 2. So the game he's playing with her is he's just gonna cut her off. She's not allowed in the house. She's cut off like financially and everything, and he's asked every lawyer in town not to represent her, so she had to go out of town. She is down and out and has no money, and she is not used to that whatsoever because she's always lived off of men. So she lives with that of Marcel, and it's not going very well. She even works for Marcel, and it doesn't go very well either, but she's still trying to stick with her job. Because Marcel tells her, "I refuse to let you go back to your husband," even though she tries to like sneak in and be with him, because if he was to kick her out, something like that, then she can actually get more money and stuff. Because she left on her own accord. He didn't kick her out. But if he kicks her out, then, shame on him and she'll get more money. And unfreeze the assets and crap like that. But he will not let her back into the house. And when Carmen lets her back in the house, he gets pretty pissed. But he loves his wife and stuff like that. And she starts dating a pastor, and they actually have her dating a black man, which is interesting because remember, she was racist in season 1, but ever since season 3, I'll say, she hasn't really been racist no more. But he realizes this just ain't gonna work between those two. And so when it comes to Adrian, they have him interacting with Zola of all people, even to the point where it seems like they might be a couple, one of those two like each other. And it's not working. Like, I think he's talking to her, consoling her, and she's having dreams about him, like romantic dreams. And I'm just kind of like, is this all the writers could think of? Like, seriously? Zoya, she takes a very interesting turn this season. Yes, she is alive. Genevieve made the ultimate decision and decided to let Genevieve live and let the baby die. And Zoila was really pissed about this. She said, you should have let the baby live. And Genevieve's all like, I couldn't do that because, you're my friend and you're the one who's, actually here and stuff like that. I'm not going to speak on this. I'm not a woman. I've never been a mother. Obviously, I have no kids as a man. And so I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm not one to speak about it. And so this is something more for like an actual woman to speak about. And so Zoila is really pissed to the point that where she no longer wants to work for Genevieve and she no longer wants to live there. So she has Marcel find her a new job. And it's a little further out, but she finds her a maid job at this one place where this rich lady lives at. But the rich lady is on vacation. So Zoila is there all by herself for pretty much the entire season. And so Zoila, for whatever reason, decides, you know what? She's not here. I'm just gonna wear her clothes and wear her jewelry and pretend to be rich. Now, I don't understand that because people in town know she's not rich. So, like, you know what I'm saying? But she wanted to do this to feel good about herself because you don't really see her mourn her baby at all. Like, you don't see her mourn that of her dead husband. But deep down inside, it really does bother her that she lost the baby and stuff. And this was her way of healing, she said. So she catch the interest of the next door neighbor, a guy named Kyle. He's a bit younger than her, 10, 15 years at the most. And he's a 40-something, no, he's not like a 30-something-year-old man or 40 or something like that. And he lives at home with his mother, Frances. And of course, they did every stereotype they could with an older man living at home with his parents. They always make them look like a loser dork. Even his mom picks out his clothes. If they don't do that, they always make them into thugs and stuff. I can't stand that in TV. Anyways, so she starts having a relationship with him, but the mother does not like it and wants him to cut it off and stuff. So she agrees to break up with him, but then it's to the point where they get back together. And he moves out and moves in with Zoila. They think she's rich and all this other stuff, but she's not. And Zoila realizes this dude just acts young. He plays video games all day and this and that. Well, what's interesting about this family is the mom is the cult leader. Yes. So this comes around full circle. So she's the one who runs the cult, the circle. And her son is kind of like her prince or whatever. He doesn't want nothing to do with it. She's all for it. This whole cult storyline is the dumbest thing I ever seen. And it doesn't really go nowhere because, like I said, she killed Ben and all this other stuff. The whole Perry situation. And so they do things kind of like up in the attic or down in the basement, something like that. And so at some point in time, like Zoila goes over there to talk to him, or something happens where I remember. So Genevieve, they want Genevieve to be part of this cult, but she doesn't want to do it. And her hairdresser dude, Fabian, everybody assumed he was gay, but he says he's gender fluid and stuff. So he starts kissing her on the lips. And Rosie, who now works for that of Genevieve, and Genevieve does not like Rosie because she don't like the way she cleans. She wants her to get as much information as she can out this cult and do the best that she can. This is how they find out that, they reveal all your secrets and stuff. And she revealed what happened to her with that guy in like the movie business and stuff. And so but at some point in time, it doesn't work. And so they need some other kind of way, to infiltrate them. But anywho, at one point, Zola just goes over there and she sees all the cult stuff and like the hidden room and all this other stuff. But the dead body is now gone. And so, somehow they got wind of Zola. Somehow they know because Zola is friends with somebody and they saw somebody go in her house. So they're like, oh crap, I think it was Rosie. So what do? They pack up everything and leave. So now Rosie doesn't have no evidence and stuff. And they literally just packed up everything and left. So now this cult is never going to pay for all the people that they harmed and all the people that they killed. A pointless storyline. Anyways, the lady who lives at the house finally comes back and she treats Zoila like crap. And I mean like crap. She is just a rude, nasty, disgusting woman. This is how later on they found out that Spence was living in the empty house next door, because the woman saw who she thought was Kyle, but it wasn't. And that's how Zoila found out it was Spence. Then when Spence and Killface Face are on the news, the lady who lives there is all like, oh, I have to call the cops, because it was actually them in real life. But Zoila won't give her the phone. And then that's when she runs over there to warn them. And then, he ends up shooting Spence and everything. So at some point in time, her and Genevieve do reconcile, I believe. But it's just a very odd storyline involving her. And you never really truly see her grieve. It's just she's pretending to be rich. That's literally all they had for her in this season, and dating some man-child and everything. Now, as for Perry and the cult and who killed her, so as Rosie is figuring everything out and reading off, the clues, this and that, it turns out that Perry was assaulted by the director of the movie, the guy that pissed Marcel off, who was misogynistic and stuff. He is the one who did it, and he has done it multiple times. He is the one who did it to Genevieve, which caused Peter to break up with her and stuff. So, but he is not the killer and everything. He's just the one who takes women's innocence and all this other stuff, and he tried to do it to Daniela. It's when Carmen and Daniela and them tie him up that he finally confesses as to who really killed Perry and stuff. It is his daughter, Gail. Now, I've never mentioned Gail. She showed up in season 3 as a recurring character. She hired Jesse to be her nanny, not nanny, but maid. And she had a little bit of a crush on him. And then when that severed hand was in her yard, she made him go put it someplace else. This season, she's back, but she's just acting as a normal recurring character again. You would never ever suspect her. This is what this show always does. When you assume it's one person, it's actually somebody else. And so she loves her father, and she'll do anything for him, even keep him out of jail. So when he does things like this, she always silences people, either by the cult or something like that. And so she is the one who killed that of Perry, because something happened. Perry caught him about to do it to somebody else, and she stopped him. And then that's when Gail showed up and murdered her and everything. They blamed it on Spence and this and that. So she confesses to the cops and she goes off to jail. And that's the season that broke the camel's back. This season was not very good at all. It reminds me so much of season 2. The writing is rushed. The characters are just unrelatable in the situations that they have to do, and the peril that they're put in and stuff. The cult storyline was dumb, and the cult got away with it. It's almost like they didn't care about their characters and stuff. They ruined Carmen. They ruined Zoila. They kind of ruined, even like I said, what's her name, Marisol and everything. At least Rosie is there trying to fight for her man because she wants to get him out of jail. But this is just the same storyline repeating from season 1. Somebody assaults somebody sexually and everything. Somebody ends up dead. Well, yeah, the person who got assaulted ended up dead. Then there's a big mystery. Then there's an innocent man in jail. They have to find a way to get that innocent man out of jail. And it's just the same exact storyline repeating itself. And it's so annoying and everything. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.